So hello and welcome to the Dharma.life podcast. I'm your host, Aloise.life Middleton, and each week we bring you a guest to help you build a life in alignment with your soul. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Martina Grubmueller. Welcome.
Hi, Aloise. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, lovely to have you with us. Martina is a transformational teacher and empowerment coach who really specializes in the subject of embodiment. So we're going to chat to Martina today. So welcome, Martina, to our show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I was really attracted to your work because you talk about human and galactic potential. And obviously this is such an exciting time on the planet right now. But would you mind sharing with my audience a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing in the world?
Yeah. Maybe to kick it off with human and galactic potential, I almost would say we can't disconnect that. It goes hand in hand because we actually are multidimensional celestial beings. Beautiful. And this is part of this awakening where we're starting to step into that role more and more, starting to acknowledge that, starting to understand what's actually where we come from, what is our purpose, and what are we going to do here. Now, in order to do that, we have to understand that we have a body, which we call the DNA instrument. And in order to really start connecting to that spiritual part that we have, we have to be completely embodied. Now, my journey is actually, I say it's a journey from challenge to conscious choice. And I've been through lots and lots of different things. I originally come from Austria, and I came to the UK in 95, and then I was 20 for 20 years. I was in the oil industry, so I have my fair share of the corporate world. And interestingly enough, I've never looked at spirituality or awakening or anything like that whilst I was obviously in the corporate world, but I was always very, very interested in personal development. And every opportunity, every situation, every difficulty, every challenge that I had, I was always very curious about it and looked at it. So what is that? What can I do with that? How can I change this? So that's how it all started. And it hasn't really changed dramatically over time. Even when I started getting introduced into the galactic mediumship, being a galactic mediator that I truly am, it was just part of that unfolding of my personal development. I didn't start to work particularly different from that perspective. I just integrated those different pieces of information that I was given at the time and just made it work. So I think the biggest message that what I always bring home is to people is I'm a big advocate of embodied spirituality. And what does that mean? It's not something we do. It's just something we be. It's a sense of beingness. Embodied spirituality is a sense of beingness. And the work that I do with people is I'm inviting them to look at their individuated journey from a place of self-healing, self-mastery, looking at creating healthy and sovereign boundaries. Because when we all start doing that, then we can start seeing the distorted social structure that we're actually
partaking in.
Yeah, we are incarcerated in that. But once we start seeing that, then we can start creating a change. So I always take it back a little notch. I always say, let's bring it back to Earth here. Before we start Galactic, let's just say, yes, that's what we are. But before we start Galactic, are we actually embodied? Are we in our bodies in order to understand what it actually means? Because if we skip that part, we are opening ourselves up to a huge possibility for crashing. because there is so much out there. If we haven't got our boundaries established, we can expose ourselves to an arena that will be detrimental to our health, to our spiritual exploration. So let's always start with that. Now, how do we start with that? Yeah.
No, what I was going to ask, because I think that's such a valid point, is that, we need to heal first.
Well, yes. And also it's a matter of, I get excited about all of that, because it's almost like, look at it as a detoxing. We have to detox from the system. And that's not making the system wrong. We all know it's crap, but it's not about judgment. It's about, okay, this is what the system is all about. We are stuck in that system, incarcerated to a certain extent. So how can we detox from that?
Absolutely. And making it really practical and useful for people.
To start off with. And because we can't jump from being those programmed, conditioned beings, all of a sudden, now I'm enlightened. No, it doesn't work like that. We need a bridge.
It's part of the journey.
Somewhere. And the bridge is also, first of all, it's an understanding this is an individual awakening. So every single one of us has to do the work. And we have to take responsibility at the level of awareness. We have to take responsibility at the level of awareness where we're at, so that we can create an emotional, a spiritual, a mental, a physical hygiene that holds, that allows us to get into a space that is safe enough for us to go astral travel, to speak to all the galactic beings, to invite our brothers and sisters in. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point, really great point, because I think everyone's getting a bit overexcited about the whole thing, aren't they, at the moment? And it could be dangerous, is what you're saying, unless we are fully embodied in ourselves.
It's hugely exciting. It's hugely exciting. But we have to really hone into that point. At least that's what I would say. First do the journey of healing, of self-mastery, and then you can start going out and getting yourself out there.
So what advice would you have for our listeners? Because obviously we've got a mixture of people listening to this. So some have, have been awake for quite a while, and others are probably new to this channel due to the Great Awakening. So when you say, get spiritual hygiene as such, like what advice do you have for people? How do they know that they are healed enough as such?
Okay, well, let's look at spiritual hygiene. What does that actually mean? If you think about it, you dirty your physical body. That's why you have a shower. That's why you have a bath. Now, it works exactly the same way. Our our energetic bodies picking up dirty energy. Now, let's not call it dirty energy. Energy is energy, but call it an energy that sometimes is not matching your signature frequency. It's not matching your vibration. So, for instance, and this is why it is so important to work at the level of your awareness, because if you jump ahead of yourself too much, you're actually getting yourself involved into energies that are not matching your signature frequency. And when I say signature frequency, what that means, we all have a vibration, the frequency, we're all in harmony with stuff. And if there's a forced match to a subject matter that we're not ready for, then we're out of sync. And you know how it works, the law of attraction.
Sure.
We will crash. We will not create what we want to create. And then we think, why? I'm awakened now. Why is it not working? Because the vibrational match is not there. So what does it mean? Spiritual hygiene means to get rid of all that imprinting. Do not allow yourself to pick up other people's energies. It starts with realizing that that's what we do, because innately we're empathetic beings. So just acknowledging that. And look, we're living in an age of information and disinformation, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
There's so much out there. There's so much expectation and projection out there, and we are continuously being bombarded with that type of information through social media, through the incarceration of the government and everything. And it's just really starting to acknowledge that this is happening, not take it on. So yes, turn the TVs off, cut down on your social media, use your level of awareness and choice when you are watching. And you know, the big trick for any awakened person would be to say, look, yes, I'm so-called awakened now, great. Show me that you can live with that system, but not entangle in it. You know, can you live in a system like that and still maintain your sovereign
boundaries
and create your wellness and your happiness and your success and your prosperity? Or are you being continuously somehow at cause, you know, at effect, cause and effect, at the effect of other people's stuff. So it's like acknowledging those expectations and those projections and getting into that space of unentangled observer, where you no longer are part of that woo-ha that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think is the way I kind of see it and see it in my community is it's almost like you said, you have to peel back the different layers of social conditioning. You know, all of us have kind of gone through a process as we've grown up into the system, and we almost then have to peel back the layers to come back out of it. And as you said, operate within it, but without being entangled within it.
Absolutely. It's all about awareness. You know, we talk about consciousness. Consciousness pretty much starts with, consciousness is pretty much awareness. And it starts with choice. Now, choice, I mean, look at the conditioning, the childhood conditioning where most of us come from, all the programming. Choice is not even something that we don't understand choice. How many people understand what it actually means to choose, to be able to choose? I mean, I was one of those. I mean, I was amazing when I had an A and B choice. Yeah, do you want to do this or that? Okay, I'll do this. But then after, 2015, was it 2015? Yeah, I got out of corporate and I became a therapist because my physical body started screaming. It's been screaming for some time, but I never listened. And then it said, look, that's it. You need to do something. And when I became a Bowen therapist, and that started me on that journey of, more self development, and then getting into all these other, higher multidimensional realms and looking at all of that. Yeah.
So are you saying, which I think is what you're saying, is effectively once we get on our path, the right things will present themselves vibrationally, almost like consciousness level wise, when we are ready for them, and that we should wait until that point because then we're in resonance with them.
Absolutely. Impatience is one of those energies that we all need to tackle. And look, I'm one of those.
Me too.
Damn impatient. It's like, come on, I want it now. I want it.
Double hands up.
Why is it not happening? What's this law of attraction business? There's a reason. Everything's gonna, and also if you start applying those more multidimensional aspects and laws and universal laws, you start realizing that time is an illusion anyway. So as soon as you start, understanding that concept, that time is not, you leave that out, and everything, you reframe yourself into a different understanding, into a different allowance when things happen, when things don't happen.
Yeah. And I think what I really like about what you're saying is we have to learn something and then embody it and then see the results in our lives. Because I think, again, what's happening a little bit at the moment is people have kind of, had this, oh my goodness, all this stuff is happening. The key thing is, how do you take this information and make it useful to your life so it has a positive impact and positive effects and you grow?
It's almost like as long as you're working with the concept of it, you haven't really
landed it.
The body and materialized. So how does that manifestation work? You know, as long as you're thinking about it, nothing has really happened. So you need to pull that thought through and start expressing it. And what we're here doing is an expression of it. That gives us an experience, and that gives your listeners an experience. And it's not that we are the experts, or I'm certainly not the expert, and I've never, looked at myself as an expert.
No, we're just on our journeys.
By sharing our experiences, other people can then look at them and say, okay, well, that resonates. And, I could look at that. And just from a level of awareness, their awareness expands. Yes. Just by listening to that. But it's an experience. If I just come along and talk about the concepts all the time, there is no connection. Then once you have an expression of it, so let's say, for instance, if I said, I would have really liked to do a podcast with Aloise, yeah, that's it. Nothing would ever happen. But now we have an expression of it, right? In the beginning. Now that's the expression. Now there is an experimentation going on while we're having a chat. Now, afterwards, it's already starting. There's an integration of that. And then afterwards, there will be more integration. What has she said? What have you said? What have the listeners said afterwards? And, that sort of stuff. And once that's finished, then we can transcend to the next level of experience. And this is now an example of a very half-an-hour podcast or whatever it is. But that's creation, and that creation repeats itself continuously. And the more we create those manifestations, the more we have those experiences, the more we become our I am individualization. And that is then expressed in becoming that, or reminding or remembering who we actually are, being that part, that particular piece of that puzzle that fits into that interconnectedness, into that wholeness.
So I'm someone listening to this podcast right now, and I'm trying to apply what you're saying to my life. So say, for example, health is an area that for me is something that I would like to improve. How could somebody listening then utilize what we're talking about to embody improving their health?
Okay, so for instance, you know that there's something not right with your digestive system. So you keep complaining about it. You can't sleep. You talk about it all the time. But you're not really willing to do anything about it. So it's a thought concept that is in your head. That's obviously, there's something going on. The body is screaming, but where is the level of responsibility for you to say, okay, so let's stop talking about it.
Do something.
What is the first step that I can do to start an expression of that? Then once that first step is done, once you have taken that level of responsibility to do something, to stop all the back doors, to not just say, oh, I should be happy and why am I not happy and all this complaining business, then taking out the emotions, and just, okay, step number one, right. Then the experimentation starts, because probably the first step will not take away the pain right away or give you the result that you want. So then what is the next step? What is the next step? These are all choices. So when we say awareness comes with choice, that means that we have to continuously choose. Everything we do is a choice.
Yeah, makes total sense.
If we choose something that doesn't work, what do? We go, oh my God, I'm a failure, I'm this. No, you just choose something else, right? So it's almost like detoxifying yourself from the system is getting out of this charge and polarity, getting out of this emotional No, just look at what is. What is happening right now? Like get out of your thought processes. And this is the interesting thing, as long as you're in your thoughts, you're actually not in your body.
Yes. Yeah, and I love that you say that, because I actually have a Dharma Life Academy, Martina, and one of the things we learn in there is that you create this vision for your life of what you want to create, but then you have to physically go and take the first step towards what it is that you want to happen. But also most people tend to then get stuck in their heads, say something doesn't go the way they want it to, and instead of then, like you said, just looking at it as if to say, okay, that happened, I'm going to process the emotion, I'm going to shift my body, and then I'm going to take another step. Most people get stuck there. They get stuck in the, there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what, having an opportunity to work with you in a Dharma school and everything, that's absolutely amazing. It's exactly for me, being so grateful having the opportunity to work with Andrew, because he gives you the bigger picture. So you have something to look forward to. You see, wow, this is what I'm working towards, right? It's almost like this is the wholeness, this is the interconnectedness. What is Dharma? Interconnectedness, going back to working with nature, right? Living in harmony, mutual co-creation, compassion, and all of that. That's all cool. But how are we going to get there, right? And that comes down to determination, repetition, leading to illumination. And hey, I hated it. When I first heard I'm like, no, please stop this, right?
Oh my God, I've got to do some work.
And I'm like, no, I get it. Not because I get it doesn't mean, just because you know what your spiritual, what your potential is, doesn't mean that you're actually going to step into it. If you have met somebody where you just know that, oh my God, this person has amazing potential, I'm not willing to step into it. How infuriating is that?
Oh, I've had to learn that the hard way and just let them go.
Let them go. Yeah, that is part of that individual journey of ours, that self-healing, that self-mastery, and that, getting our sovereign boundaries. It's the biggest thing when you come from a place of martyr, like I used to. And when you have that level of awareness where you can perceive what's going on with this person, you can feel everything, right? And you have to step away. You have to be honoring and in acknowledgement of their journey. And you know what? They might never choose to be awakened. They might never choose to go for galactic citizenship, and things. They might not even understand what you're talking about. And that's okay too.
Yeah, that's a really, I think as a someone who empowers others, that did get me for quite a while, because obviously you could, like you said, you can see the potential in everyone, and you're like, come on, you can do it. And then I just learned the lesson that I just had to honor their, like you said, honor their journey. And interestingly, I found when I honor their journey, they'll come back round. They come back a year or two later and they're like, I'm ready.
And isn't it amazing that when you get to that level where you don't have to get involved, you don't have to push yourself onto these people, you don't have to force your signature free onto them. It becomes such a freeing. It's like, wow.
Well, that's the healer trap, isn't it? That a lot of healers fall into, they're getting their energy from other people that they're serving.
Well, you're exactly saying it, because that's what actually happens. This is a huge energy harvesting exercise. All these people that are so kind to you and they're so nice to you, and actually it's just, they need to be needed. And I was one of them. I didn't know.
No, well, again, it's not something we learn, is it?
No, it's like,
right.
What? When I first found out, I thought, what's the last thing? No, yes. Because when we're little, we have these capacities. We're like sponges, like psychic sponges, and we can perceive what's going on. And then we want our mums and dads and, siblings to be happy. So what do? We just pick up all the crap, right?
Yeah.
Take it on, until we get to a stage where we're so saturated with it that spirituality awakening is lifetimes away. Having said that, when you get and change that, and we do the self-mastery and healing, here you go.
Yeah, it's like now. So for people listening, to explain the healer trap a little bit, like when you potentially get into this work, there is a trap that you can fall into, because obviously you're now being fulfilled through your work, and energetically, some healers are unconsciously. I wouldn't say it's a conscious thing, but unconsciously, they're being served by the energy of the people that they're serving, if that makes sense. And so, important that we have the self-mastery, that's not how we get our energy as such.
Yeah. And it goes both ways. I mean, one of the things that I've realized was that obviously that the more I used to do that, even before I became a healer, a therapist, it backfired onto me all the time. Because by doing that, by picking up other people's energies, it's not just that they pick yours. You also obviously, you know, like for instance, I remember doing a bowing session with somebody, and on a subconscious level, I only found out years later, because I developed the back pain I had. And then I had a reading with Andrew, actually. And he said to me, he said, well, you had a client that was in such bad shape physically, but, you know, on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, you picked up what had happened to that person, and you said that shouldn't happen to you, and you took it on. Because our bodies are healers innately. So I didn't do that in awareness. I actually took on all those energetic issues into my body, and then I couldn't heal it. Because when we take on other people's energies, they're just not yours. It's not for us to do that. So all I needed to do after, and it took me a long time to realize what I had done, I had to acknowledge that empathy is one of the lowest psychic skills that you can have. And that's what I learned through my work with Andrew. I mean, I knew it before that, you know, just don't take it on, but I never looked at empathy as the lowest psychic skill, because that's a bit of like, what? But actually, when you start looking at it, you're not doing yourself a favor. It's almost like you're saying, oh, you're not capable of carrying that that karma, if you wish. I'm taking it from you. You have to.
So how do we have good spiritual hygiene then around that? How would you suggest for people listening?
Well, first of all, acknowledge when you do it, if you have done it in the past, and know that, just acknowledge first that your body is, when you're in that type of, when you are a healer, when you are a therapist, and when you are sort of empathetic and sympathetic to other people, your body is probably a healer. Because just because we have a body doesn't mean we are the body. So if the body is a healer, it would reach out and do stuff without our permission. That's called tacit consent. So we tacitly consent that is happening, but it happens in unawareness. So as soon as you actually switch over and say, hey, shit, oh, I never heard that, now I know, different story. So this is the lovely thing about it. Once you bring something into your awareness, you have expressed it through words. You have a concept that you can look at, make sense of it, cognitize it. You no longer have to do it. So that's number one. The acknowledgement of it.
So going into a session, you might have awareness or set an intention that you're energetically going to look after yourself.
So basically saying, look, I'm a healer, yes. That's just not what I do anymore. I don't take on other people's stuff. That's just not what I do.
So, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
It's just that to start off with. Now, in the beginning, because I have been practicing that over the last 15 years. So, you know, it's practice. Practice makes mastery, obviously. So in the beginning, yes, you do. There are so many different techniques, and you probably know all of them, where, you know, you put yourself in an eggshell, you protect yourself, but not from a place of, I'm afraid.
No, sure. Just a healthy boundary.
From a place of sovereign boundaries. So we call that sovereign boundaries. We're going to take the fear. It's got nothing to do with fear. It's got just all to do with that knowingness that this can happen, because we're all energetic beings, and those energetic imprints can happen very, very quickly. Yeah. So and then afterwards you cleanse yourself off. You use your sprays, you can use sound, you can use so many different things to do.
I have to be honest, I've learned that the hard way, Martina, especially, I think that's generally how we learn. But, speaking to large numbers of people and then feeling really drained afterwards and not realizing that energetically I'm still connected.
Yeah.
And of course they're draining my energy like a battery, and I'm wondering why I'm tired.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, look, you are in the open eye of the public here. So after every interview you do, you probably disconnect yourself. I mean, by now you've been doing this for so long, you do it automatically. But in the beginning, you just say, okay, so now I disconnect myself. You can shake it out. You go out into the garden, you ground yourself, so many different things. It starts with your bed. When you go to bed, you put your crystals in the beginning, you have your crystals, you put it around your bed to have, this is my space,
grounding mats. We've got a grounding mat on the end of our beds.
Yeah, absolutely. And that obviously takes us into the next level, talking about all the energies and all the beings without the bodies that are coming to visit you and things like that. And it's quite interesting because, we make a big ghosts and demons and entities. The procedure is exactly the same. It's not going to be any different just because they haven't got a body. Same thing. Some of them are nice beings and some of them are assholes, just like people.
So it's having healthy energetic boundaries with them.
Having healthy energetic boundaries and reinforcing them. And there's an endless list. One can talk about, what that is. And spiritual hygiene is the term that has been coined by Andrew, obviously, and I do work with him quite a lot. So so he talks about salt baths. Yeah. Talks about, putting salt, sage, and silver in a little plastic bag or something, put it onto the coccyx, put it onto the neck, go to bed with it.
And what does that do?
That draws out toxic energy. The salt is obviously,
Yes.
And sage and silver. So silver, you can take a little silver ring or something and just throw it in and just put it on the coccyx and, just strap it on as a bit of a procedure. But this is also helping for dreamtime experiences when you have a lot of nightmares and stuff like that.
It grounds you effectively.
It grounds you, and it just really helps you to eliminate all those that toxicity.
Wonderful. So I'd love to talk a little bit about this kind of galactic connection. I think what you've said is fantastic and really important, that people are embodying their development and obviously keeping really healthy spiritual, energetic boundaries, and that we don't necessarily try and jump levels, because almost what you're saying is, we're peeling back the layers, and as we peel back the layers, naturally our frequency will attract whatever it is that we're supposed to be then working on. But I know that you also talk about human and galactic potential, so I would love to just hear a little bit more about your thoughts on the ascension and what is happening right now, because as we said before we came on, I believe this is why we came. Personally, this is what I'm here for. And it is an incredibly exciting time on Earth, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more around your work in this area.
Okay, so it's such a huge arena. So let's see what comes up for me here is, because we said we all come here for, yes. So the Earth is a 7 seed galactic seed planet, which means that we've all come, every single one of us, and it doesn't matter if they are on air, if they are, mums or bums, doesn't really matter. We've all come here for karmic resolution. So it's almost like the planet has brought in all these different beings, and all the different beings that are here are master souls. Every single one of us. And we all obviously, interbred from all different star systems, dimensions, universes. It's a huge thing. DNA farming and all of that. I don't want to go into that. But
karmic resolution sounds fascinating.
Karmic resolution. So, and this is why Dharma is what we're striving forward. Like we said early on, living interconnected, living holistically with the earth and everything. So karmic resolution. And we also must remember that we are here as teachers. Pretty much, you don't have to call yourself a teacher. We're all teachers here. We are all healers, really, on some level, because we've come here in this particular time of awakening to heal not just our own lives, but heal the past, heal our bloodline, heal our lineages, because every change that you create in your life has an impact on the past generation and on the future generation. And you'll know that. I mean, through your journey, the more work you did on yourself, the happier you became, the
Absolutely.
more awareness you started seeing it in your family.
Yeah.
Even though you might not even have had the opportunity to speak to them about it. I certainly have seen it. I can have conversation now with members of my family that I couldn't have had 20 years ago. They were totally closed. But now, and this is part of the work that we're doing. Yes, there is a change in the energies and the planetary and universal and everything too. So, and then of course, every change that you're doing now, it doesn't matter how old you are, has an impact on your future generations, or has an impact on yourself as the future version of yourself. Because you see, this is the other thing. When we start talking multidimensional, we have to start acknowledging that there's not just one Aloise. There's many, many, many different versions of you. They might not be a woman, even in this reality, even in this lifetime. So this is all acknowledging the multiple selves of ourselves that are spread all over the place, all over the timelines, dimensions, universes. And this is part of the work that we're doing on a multidimensional level. As we're doing the healing and as we're doing the mastery, the self-mastery, we start bringing those versions of ourselves back and start integrating them. That's called the I am individualization. And that's the big part that we're all working on at the moment.
And this is what people are talking about, integrating our higher selves effectively, because that's a future version of ourselves. Because I know that's how people are referring to it. We're in this process of evolution where we're integrating.
Yeah. But you gotta look at the soul is so big. It's not just we are the avatar, the I am apex avatar, if you wish, here. And this is the whole point to acknowledge for people. Yes, there's a higher self or soul, whatever you want to call it, a non-local one. And you have that connection through your DNA instrument, through your body. You have that connection to that higher self. And you're continuously communicating with that. You'll never be able to bring all of it into that instrument in this incarnation, because it's too big. But the idea is to just grab as much as you can and start integrating and understanding the bigger picture, understanding that we are manifested in these bodies here, and at the same time, we are in the ocean of awareness. We are living multidimensionally. And even now, as we're talking, it's like there's a simultaneous existing going on. And you may or may not acknowledge that, but just by me talking here, all my other selves are contributing to all of that. Your precognitive, your post-workforce, giving you ideas and things like that. And that's a concept to get your head around. And in the beginning, you just have to say, okay, cool, yes, let's play with that. Because these concepts are so out there.
Sure.
We're not being taught that, right?
No. it's all kind of becoming more and more clear to us as we go along. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the karmic resolution as well? Because obviously I know, again, some people are saying that, humanity now has a chance to step out of its almost like karmic loop. We've been trapped in a kind of karmic cycle as such. And actually this ascension process is enabling us to get out of the third dimension as such.
Yes, that's why it's called karmic resolution. So this is where, the end of karma, if depending on the level of awareness that you're at, which basically means that you wouldn't have to come back, you wouldn't have to reincarnate into that. So
into the third, into the physical.
Because the reincarnation itself was a trap in the beginning. That was never meant to be on a big galactic universal level. But we were trapped into that. It's coming back and back and back because of all the DNA farming and everything that happened. But the main thing is now to look at it, to simplify all of that. As we're starting to let go of the global narrative, of the narrative that we have been fed, what is right, what is wrong, as we go getting out of definitions, this is who you're supposed to be, and you're transformational teacher, but you're so much more, right? And just that acknowledgement will then lead you to an experience. And all of that is just blah, blah, if we're not having an experience with it. And this is now really coming through big time with the teachers of the now that are understanding the concepts. It's no point to just talk about it when we can't experience it. We have to start experiencing it. And how do we experience karmic resolution? Well, we go through the challenges, right? Until that charge and polarity becomes less and less and less, and we start creating from a different perspective.
Well, being someone that works with the Akashic Records, I that's one thing I help people do is resolve their karma through the Akashic Records. And obviously that is something that's available to us now that hasn't necessarily been available to past generations.
So how do you do that?
By clearing their Akashic record. So if I give an example from my own life, like, my relationship with my husband was, we'd been married in a past life. And so we were married in this life, and we had karma that we were repeating from a past life in this life. And so by accessing the records, I could access that information, and I could also gain the awareness and clear the karma, but have the awareness so I then don't fall back into the same pattern.
Exactly.
So
you see, this is the thing. It's looking at what is, gaining the awareness, and awareness is change.
Choosing not to do the same thing.
Choosing, exactly. So that's what it's simple, but...
It's simple, but it's so difficult if you are in a karmic cycle, because, people come to me all the time, and having been through it myself, you can't see it. So you can't choose when you can't see. So that's why I do find this work really powerful.
Yeah, no, it is truly powerful. Absolutely.
Martina, I think I could probably talk to you all day. I feel like we've just started, and that's like literally like nearly 45 minutes. So.
Oh, really? I totally lose time.
Yeah, me too. It kind of went so quickly, but I would like to say thank you, because I thoroughly.
No, you're most welcome.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation.
Fantastic.
And maybe you'd be open to coming back, because I feel like there's more for us to talk about, really.
Absolutely. We can just define a topic or something and then take it from there if you wish. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And how can people listening find you, connect to you, come and follow you?
Well, I've got my website, which is, I'm starting to recreate it, but at the moment is www.syncholistic.co.uk. And I'm pretty much on all the media channels, and I'm doing a lot of work I'm doing shows now with Andrew Bartzis on a Tuesday. And they all go up on YouTube, and I've got my own YouTube channel, and we've just created a earthnouveau.com, Earth Nouveau.
Okay.
That is a result of friends that I've made through the mentorship with Andrew, we've got together, and we do actually on a weekly basis, we get a Zoom. We have a Zoom on a Wednesday, 5:00 BST, and we just get together for dialogue. We chat and we choose a subject matter, and then just we all get together and do exactly what we do.
Community is where it's at. We all need a community,
Absolutely.
a loving, supportive community. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. I'll make sure all those details go in the show notes so people can find you. But yeah, thank you so much. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Me too. Thanks for having me on, huh?
No, not at all. And we'll see you next week with another incredible guest on the Dharma Life podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Dharma Life podcast. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Please come over and say hello on my Instagram, our Facebook group, and also please let me know what you thought. So if you are listening, please take a screenshot of the podcast that you are listening to. Tag me on Instagram and I will reshare your post, and please let me know what it is that you got out of today's episode. Remember, when we do our Dharma, we are happier, healthier, we live longer, and we have a deep sense of unshakable inner peace.